Hello, welcome to the online lecture. Today we'll talk about human organization. It's basically, today's lecture will be long because it will be a brief overview of anatomy. There are many things to cover in this lecture. Will be about anatomy class. And then the second half will be an overview of the physiology class. So it's a very long lecture. I hope we can finish it in just two videos. So first of all, we talk about different types of tissues. Okay, remember at the beginning of the semester, we talked about different level of the organization in an organism. So all living organisms are made of cells. And then the same group of cells, when you have a lot of cells that have the same type and they group together, they will form tissues. Tissues, as the definition here, is composed of similar cells that perform the same function. So tissues, they perform the same function. When you have different type of tissue, that means when you have different functions that group together, what do they form? They form organs. And then, as you know, that different organs, they have different function as well. When you have many organs grouped together, what do we have? We have organ systems. When you have multiple organ systems together, we will form what we call the organ, a living organism. So we have four types of tissues in the body: epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. So among these four, epithelial and connective, they are the, when you take anatomy, you have a lot to memorize. But there are many different types of epithelial cells, and there are also different types of connective tissue that you need to so-called learn or memorize in the anatomy class. Muscular, we only have three types of muscles in the body. The nervous system is even simpler. So when you study this part, you should focus on epithelial and connective tissues. So epithelial, they cover the surface of the body, but also the surface of the organs inside your body. So inside your body, you have different organs. On the surface of the different organs, they have this epithelial cell as well. And they also set lines of cavities, meaning that inside your organ, if there is a cavity inside your organ, let's say your stomach or your esophagus, so they have a cavity inside, and the lining of the cell of the cavity, they are also made up of epithelial cells. Connective tissue, as the name suggested, it binds the body part together. That's why I call it connective. It connects different body parts. Muscular, well, is your muscle. We'll talk about, we have three types of muscle. The muscle that we see normally on people's body, they are called a skeletal muscle. We have a cardiac muscle, which is your heart muscle, and then we have smooth muscle. Smooth muscle, they are the muscle that form your, let's say, blood vessels, and also form your GI tract, gastrointestinal tract. That means your gut. And also, last but not least, your nervous tissues. They are the one that form your nervous system, the brain, spinal cord, and all the nerve ending. So epithelial cells, they are the cells they pack tightly together to form a continuous layer. We'll talk about what bind the cell together. In this class, we will introduce three types of so-called cell junction. Cell junctions are you may call it the glue or the bolt that bolts all the cells together. We'll talk about which 3 types. And then they have 5 types of function: protective, secretion, absorption, excretion, and filtration. So these are the 5 types of function. We'll talk about glands. There are 2 different types of glands, exocrine and endocrine glands. We'll talk about the differences. Cells used also for absorption, especially in your intestine. And then excretion for metabolic waste, and filtration, let's say in your kidneys. So on the external surfaces, the epithelial cell protects the body from injury, drying out, and invasion of the microbes. For example, on our skins, we have a layer of the outermost part of the skin. They are the dead cells. We use the dead cell wrap around our bodies so that we can fake to the microbes that we are dead tissue. So the microbes see that, oh, it's all dead tissue, then they won't eat us, they won't invade us. And then internal surface, I told you before, for protective function, because inside our body, I told you that the surface of the organ, they are also lined with epithelial cell, and also inside the cavity of your organ, also lined with the epithelial cells. So they have the protective function of inside of our organs, and also they have something called specific function that we'll talk about briefly as well. Especially when in the next few lectures at the end of this semester, we'll pick several of the organ system to talk about in the class and also in the online lectures. Then you will know their specific functions. So when we classify epithelial tissue, we can classify them according to the shape of the cells. For the squamous epithelium, squamous meaning that they are flattened. Cuboidal meaning that they are cube-shaped. Columnar meaning that they are rectangular pillar. They are like rectangular pillar. That's why we call it columnar. It's like a column. Or they can classify, well, we can classify the epithelial cell by the number of layers they have. Simple means they only have 1 layer of cells. Stratified, meaning that they have multiple layers. Pseudo-stratified, meaning that they have 1 layer. But when you look at these epithelial cells under the microscope, they looks like they seem to have multiple layers. So appear to be multiple layer, but actually it's only 1 layer. Gland. So glands are the epithelial cell that can secrete products. We have 2 types of glands. One is called exocrine gland. Exocrine secretes products into ducts. Usually these ducts, they go to the external environment. That means outside our body, let's say our sweat glands, it is exocrine gland. Endocrine glands secrete product into the bloodstream. For example, hormones. Let's say our testis is one of the exocrine organ that can secrete testosterone into the bloodstream. So it is an example of endocrine gland. Endocrine gland does not have ducts. Then pancreas is both exocrine and endocrine gland. Pancreas and endocrine gland, for example, pancreas can secrete insulin to lower our blood glucose level. And for diabetic patient, their pancreas cannot secrete insulin. So they have a high blood glucose level all the time. That's why they are diabetic. Pancreas is also an exocrine gland. When pancreas acts like a digestive organ in the digestive system, pancreas can secrete digestive enzyme into the small intestine to help us to digest food. So pancreas is like the only organ that is both exocrine and endocrine gland. So we can see different cell type in this in the pictures here. I may or may not, I'm not sure yet, I may simply just copy and paste these pictures, these microscope pictures from the lecture slides onto the exam and ask you to identify what kind of cell type, what cell type they are. The reason is that some of you may be taking anatomy after finishing Bio 3A. So if you are able to recognize this, the different cell type in Bio 3A, it will help you a lot when you go to anatomy. Because usually the first exam in the anatomy, it will have histology, meaning that you have to identify all these cell type under the microscope in your exam. So I am thinking about including this into your exam as well. I'll just copy these pictures and put it in the exam and ask you to identify the cell type. So simple squamous looks like this. They are flat and you see a conspicuous nucleus. They actually have one layer. So usually you can find them from the lung or blood vessels. The lung, it is only one cell phase, so that it will be easier to facilitate to the gaseous exchange. So that oxygen gas or carbon dioxide can only need to diffuse into one layer of cell. Also blood vessels. So you need to know the location or example where you find the different type of cells. Simple squamous lung and blood vessel. Blood vessel, especially, you can find it in the capillaries, because capillaries, they are so small and thin, so that it can facilitate the exchange of the nutrient, namely the glucose, from blood into your body tissues, or metabolic waste from your body tissue into your blood. So you can find it in the capillaries and lung. You need to know the name of the cell, you need to identify the cell, you also need to know the example or the location where you can find this type of cells. Pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar cell. Pseudo-stratified, if you look at this picture here, you can see that it looks like they have two layers of cell. Let's look at here, two layers of cell. But actually, all these two layers of cell, they are attached to the same so-called basement membrane. Since they are attached to the same basement membrane, we consider them as one layer. And then you will see that there's some blue cells here. These blue cells we call it goblet cells. Goblet cells, they are usually for secreting mucus to moisturize the surface of this layer of cell. And most importantly, there's something called cilia. Cilia. So these cilia, they can move and whip because they are connected to the cytoskeleton inside of the cell. So they can move. This cilia can move. What is the function of this cilia? Well, where can you find? You can find from trachea. Trachea, that means your windpipe of your lung. We don't call it windpipe here because we learned this is the more appropriate scientific term, trachea. So what happens is that it helps to trap and sweep. So the goblet cell will secrete mucus, and the mucus will trap all the dust that you breathe in, and then the cilia will sweep the mucus with the dust going out towards your throat, so that when you spit, you actually cough out or spit out the mucus trapping with all the dust. For a chronic smoker, they cough a lot. When they cough so much, they actually damage all these cilia and the goblet cell that secrete the mucus, and so that they eventually they will stop coughing and stuff, and then when they smoke, all the smoke particle will just keep on accumulating into their lung. In this case, it can cause lung cancer. So it weakens the immune system. This is part of the built-in immune response to help us to defend any microbes or dust. So for smokers, they suppress this response. And stratified squamous, that means multiple layers of the flat cells. The drawing here is easier to understand. This is the part that is the real microscope, how it looks like. We can find it on our skin epidermis. We will talk about the integumentary system. That means our skin system at the end of today's lecture. And you need to memorize one, for example, skin. There are also, you can also find from our nose, mouth, esophagus, anal canal, and vagina. Of course, the function is for protection. Why is that? Really has multiple layers. It is easy for something called replacement. For example, the outer layer of the cell can be easily eroded or removed. After the outer layer is removed, then there is the bottom layer from the basement membrane here. It will keep on growing the new cell because it has some stem cells here. It will keep growing to replace the outermost layer. So you keep on growing to replace the outermost layer. That's why this stratified squamous is for the part of your body that is easily, it has a lot of abrasion. For example, skin. Our skin is constantly replaced every few days. It will replace our surface of the skin because our skin will bump into different external parts. Similar to our mouth, esophagus, and our anus. So they are, when we talk about digestive system, you know that our mouth, esophagus, and our anus, they are basically one tube. It's one continuous tube. And then that's why they all have the same epithelial tissue, which is the stratified squamous. Whatever we eat from our mouth, the food will actually scrape off some of the tissues on the surface of our mouth. That's why we need the stratified squamous cell. So if you in your biophysiology lab, you should have done an experiment that it asks you to use a stick to scrape the inside of your cheek and then look at the cell under the microscope. The cell you see is actually the stratified squamous cell. And then anus. So when we do number 2, we call it defecation. Defecation is also because we are expelling the feces, so that the surface of the anus some of the cell will also be scraped off. Because of that, that's why we need to have multiple layers to help it to regenerate. Similarly for vagina, it's also for that purpose. Simple columnar. Simple columnar cell, as you can see, the columnar cell, they have they are like the column, pillar shape, so that it provides a relatively larger surface area for attachment of the neighboring cell. Because of that, they form a relatively stable surface for the epithelium. We can find this out from the small intestine and the uterine tube. The main purpose is for absorbing nutrient. So what happens is that in your small intestine, we also have goblet cell that can secrete mucus to the mucus will help the movement of your food going down your gut, your small intestine. And they should have something called microvilli here. Microvilli, they are basically the extension of the cell membrane into small finger-like microvilli. They are smaller than the cilia. Cilia, they are like the extension of the cytoskeleton. But microvilli, or those villi, they are basically extension of the cell membrane of this columnar cell. Because of the extension of the columnar cell, it greatly increases the surface area of the columnar cell so that you will facilitate the absorption of nutrient. Simple cuboidal. As the name suggested, they are like a square cube shape. They're characterized by the central gigantic round nucleus. You will see a central gigantic round nucleus, that is cuboidal cell. They usually form the tubule or gland. As you can see, it looks like the opening of a gland or tubule here. Purpose of it is to absorb molecules. You can find them in kidney or various glands. So this is the summary. So in this class, we only talk about 5 types of epithelial cell. So you need to know how they look like, and also you need to know where you can find them. So you need to know how they look like, where you can find them, and what else? And also the function, yeah. 3 things. Their function, location, and their, how they look like, the morphology. So I can put this picture up and then ask you, what type of tissue is this one? Then the multiple choice will be, you will pick the simple columnar. And then where do you find them? Well, in the small intestine, uterine tube. What's the function? Well, absorb nutrient. So I briefly mentioned previously that the cell, we have epithelial cell, they are connected to each other. What connects them? We have about 3 types of cell junction here that I introduced you. We have more than 3 types of cell junction. But in this class, we only tell you the 3 common types that you need to know. These cell junctions, they act like a bolt that help to weld the cell together. First one is called tight junction. Tight junction, it is impermeable barrier. Where can you find tight junction? You can find tight junction, for example, in your intestine. So that the food inside your gut cannot be crossed the cell, the simple columnar cell. They have to be absorbed through the simple columnar cell in order to get into the bloodstream. Gap junction. Gap junction meaning that the 2 cells, they are actually, the cytoplasm of each cell, they are actually connected. In other words, it makes the cells, although they are different cells, but actually the cytoplasm can actually freely go through all the cells. Why do we want that to happen? So this gap junction is actually a protein channel that bridge or form a tunnel to connect adjacent cell. The cytoplasm can go through adjacent cell. Why do we want this to happen? An example is that you can find them in your heart muscle. When the heart muscle, they are formed by different cells. So what happens is that if you have gap junction, so that all the heart muscle cells, the cytoplasm can go through, meaning that all the cardiac cells can act like one cell, so that when the contraction occurs in one cell, then all the cells will contract at the same time. So that's the purpose of gap junction, to connect all the cells and act like one cell. Adhesion junction. Adhesion junction, they use the intracellular filament. It's like one of the cytoskeleton to attach the cell together. So this cell junction, the plasma membrane do not touch each other, but they are mainly formed. The cell is formed by the cytoskeleton, the intracellular filament. In other words, this adhesion junction, the substances can go through. The substances can go through in between the cell. Unlike tight junction, the substances cannot go through the epithelial cells. Now we finished the epithelial cell, so it's good. We finished one quarter of the tissues. The next one we talk about is the connective tissues. So these are the function of connective tissue. You also need to know them. Bind the organs together, provide support and protection, fill spaces, produces blood cell, and store fat. Yes, we classify blood as a connective tissues. We will tell you later why. Connective tissue consists of 2 parts. The first part is the connective tissue cells. The second part is called matrix. So you need to have a connective tissue cells, and also you need a matrix. These two are the criteria to be connective tissues. So the matrix can be solid, semi-solid, or liquid. So for non-fluid, in the non-fluid matrix, you have the different fibers. Fibers in the connective tissue, we have these three types: collagen, elastic, and reticular. So size, string, and string. Yeah, both size and string. So collagen fiber, they have the biggest diameter, and also they have they are the strongest. And then the second one is the elastic. Elastic fiber, they have a medium size of the diameter, and also they have the medium strength. Reticular fiber, they're the thinnest, and they are also the easiest to break. One thing is that elastic fiber, as the name suggested, these fiber, they are elastic. That means they are stretchable. So we can take a look. So the first type of the connective tissue, we call it the loose fibrous connective tissue. Loose fibrous connective tissues. So connective tissue, as the name suggested, they bind different organs together. They support epithelium. They form protective covering of the internal organ. You can find this loose fibrous connective tissue in muscle, blood vessels, and nerve. They also found in the lung, arteries. Artery, that means the blood vessels, and urinary bladder. You can find it almost in all kinds of tissues, organ or tissues. For the dense fibrous connective tissues, we call it dense because it has mostly collagen fiber. It has mostly collagen fiber that makes them very dense. When the connective tissue has collagen fiber, it makes the tissue very strong. Where can you find those strong tissues? In tendon and ligament. So this is the definition of tendon and ligament. You need to memorize that because it is when you take anatomy, you need to know the differences. Tendon connects muscle to bone. Ligament connects bone to bone. So because tendon and ligament, they are example of dense fibrous connective tissue, they have a lot of collagen in it to make them really tough. So they both have the connective tissue cell called fibroblasts. Both loose and dense connective, they have the fibroblasts. Fibroblasts, they are the self-blast, meaning they are the cell that can generate or that can mature into different type of cells. This type of cell will generate a fiber. So the matrix of these two types of loose and dense connective fiber, they have this jelly-like matrix with collagen and elastic fiber. So we can take a look at the pictures here. So this picture is the loose fibrous connective tissues. You can find them in the skin. And the function is support and bind organs. So you see that the thick pink fiber is the collagen. And the thin one is the elastic. You can see that elastic is thinner. It's a lot thinner than the collagen. And you have fibroblast cell here as well. And for the dense fibrous connective tissues, you have a collagen fiber closely packed. You can also find it in the skin, but mainly in tendon and ligament. for support. So you can see most of them, they are actually a collagen. Once in a while, you can see the nucleus of the fibroblast here. Adipose tissue. Adipose tissue, as the name suggested, they are the fat cells. So what happens is the fibroblasts in the adipose tissue, they store fat. So they have a special vacuole that can store fat, and the vacuole that store fat is actually expanding so much in the cell that it pushes the nucleus of the cell to the side of the cell, so that the nucleus is actually in contact with the cell membrane. And the major function of those fibroblasts is just to store fat in a enlarged vacuoles. The cell we call adipocyte, because site means cell, adipose means fat. So we need the adipocyte or fat cell to store energy, to insulate, because it can keep our body warm. And for organ protection, for example, the kidneys. The kidneys are located behind our body. Kind of our rib cage cannot fully cover the kidneys. So our kidneys is basically exposed to the, there's no bone to protect the kidney. Because of that, around that area we have a lot of fat, or you can call it love handle, those areas. So that the fat tissue are the only one that can protect the kidney from being damaged. Well, in other words, if you get into a fight with people, you want to hit people here, that does not have any bone protecting, and it will potentially damage the kidney. And we also have fat surrounding the surface of the heart, which is not a good thing, because you don't want to have heart attack and stuff. So adipocytes, they look like this. You see that they are mostly white because this is the vacuole. As I told you, the vacuole that store fat, it will expand so much that it occupies most of the cell, and it pushes the nucleus to the side of the cell. So you can only see the nucleus on the side, but this is the adipocyte. Where can you find the fat cells? Well, common sense. You can find the fat cells under the skin, on the surface of the kidneys. What's the function? Insulation, store energy. Reticular connective tissues. Reticular connective tissue, they form the lymphatic tissues. You can find them in lymph nodes, spleen. Spleen is actually the largest lymphatic organ. The largest lymphatic organ you can in your lymphatic system is spleen, thymus, and bone marrow. So this is the location. Function is to form the lymphatic tissues. And we don't have a picture for this. And cartilage. Cartilage is also classified as a connective tissue because they are formed by the dense fibrous connective tissue, tissues. So you can find cartilage easily at your joints. All your joints, they are lined with this cartilage because cartilage form a very smooth surface. So when your joints are moving, when the two bones are moving against each other, you will have a smooth movement. And also the cartilage work as shock absorption. So the chondrocyte. Chondrocyte are the cell of the cartilage cell. Chondrocytes are the cartilage cell. The chondrocyte, they are located in something called lacuna. It's a small chamber that is they are bathed in the matrix. We have three types of cartilage: hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. Usually, when I talk about the in the anatomy, I'll first talk about the elastic. Elastic cartilage, as the name suggests, they are elastic. Why? Because they have a lot of elastic fibers. when the cartilage has elastic fiber, they become elastic. Where can we find elastic cartilage? Your outer external ear, that means this one. The reason when we flip our ear and they can go back up, because they are formed by the elastic cartilage with a lot of elastic fiber. That's an example of your elastic cartilage. The second one I want to talk about is the fibrocartilage. Fibrocartilage, as the name suggested, fibro means fiber. This cartilage has a lot of fiber. What fiber? Collagen. This cartilage has a lot of collagen. And as you remember, collagen has the biggest size and has the strongest strength. So, when the cartilage has this collagen, what will that make this cartilage? It will make the cartilage very, very strong. Where can we find this cartilage? In between our vertebrae. So, in between our vertebral column. When we jump, what happens is that our vertebral column, all the bones, they will press against each other. But in between each of the vertebrae, then there's this fibrocartilage. In between them, acts like a cushion to absorb all the shock or all the pressure when we jump or walk. Similarly, we have fibrocartilage in our knee joint, because whenever we jump or whenever we walk, the bone, the femur is our thigh bone, and the tibia, you can call it the shin bone, they will be pressing against each other. And then we have the fibrocartilage on the surface of the bone to help to absorb the pressure. Last but not least, we have hyaline. Hyaline is like the most common type of cartilage. When you don't have, as you can assume that when it is not your ear, when it is not your knee joint, and it is not your vertebral column, then basically all the cartilage in your body, they are hyaline. They have collagen fiber, but those collagen fiber, they are smaller in size. For example, where can you find the hyaline? Your nose. So if you press your nose, and your nose can return to the original shape, because your nose is composed of hyaline cartilage. What else? Also, the rings on the respiratory passages. That means here, you have cartilage around your trachea here. Those cartilage is also hyaline. Most importantly, the fetal skeleton, the bone in the fetus, they are also composed of a hyaline. But as the fetus mature, when they are born, all the hyaline, all the cartilage, they will go through something called ossification. Ossification, meaning that it's the conversion of the cartilage or hyaline into bone, regular compact bone. Then it's called ossification. So bone, or also known as compact bone, that means it called the most rigid connective tissues. Even though bone is considered as a connective tissue, they also have matrix. So the bone, they have a calcium salt deposit around the calcium fibers. The calcium salt that will form, they will make the bone really hard. And then we have protein fiber that provide, the bone is actually a living tissue and the bone can actually bend. It is not completely rigid like steel. It is a living tissue that allow a small degree of bending. We have two types of bone tissue, compact bone and spongy bone. The compact bone forms the shaft of the long bone. So it is like the most of what we think about the bone or the hard long one, those are the compact bone. They are formed by something called osteon. Osteons, they are like the subunit of the compact bone. In the center part of the osteon, we have something called a central canal. The central canal, it has blood vessels to go through. And just like the cartilage, the compact bone also have something called lacunae. It's like a small holes that allow the osteocyte they are the bone cell. This lacunae, or is plural, lacuna is the singular. So the osteocyte will live in these lacunae, just like the chondrocyte living in the lacunae. So this forms the bone. In the central canal, it has lacunae, it has the osteocyte, it has subunit called osteons. The spongy bone, what happens is that they have, inside the spongy bone, you have lots of space, empty space. When you cut open the spongy bone, they look like a sponge because they have lots of holes in it. All the holes, all the pores in the spongy bone, they have blood vessels to go through. That's why spongy bone, they usually, you can find it at the end of the long bone, that means at the joint, around the joint. Normally this plate, you have this kind of plate at the end of the spongy bone for growth. So when we are young, we can grow tall because we have this plate at the spongy bone area that can grow, so they can elongate and increase the length of the compact bone. That's why the spongy bone has a lot of blood vessel supply, so that when we are young, all the blood supply can help the growth of the bone. So the compact bone looks like this. So this is called osteon. It looks like a tree ring. When you see a slice that looks like a tree ring, then it is a compact bone. So we call this an osteon. It's a subunit. The center one we call it central canal. It has the blood vessels to go through. And then we have here, you see this dark dot, or this black dot here. We call this the lacuna. Inside the lacuna, we have the osteocyte living in here. And in here, we call it cannuliculi. Cannuliculi, this basically are the thin black line that going into this direction. These thin black line, they have a capillary to go through in order to bring nutrients to the osteocyte in the lacuna. Blood is also a type of connective tissues. We have blood cells. As I mentioned, that the definition of connective tissue is that they must have connective tissue cells. In this case, they are the blood cells, and they must have matrix. The matrix here will be the plasma. Plasma are the matrix for the connective tissue blood. And then you have all this function of the blood you also need to know. For example, blood transport nutrient and oxygen and remove carbon dioxide and metabolic waste. It helps to distribute heat because what else? The balanced pH ion protect against diseases because white blood cell travel in the blood vessels in the blood. We also have blood clotting factor like the platelet cell in the blood. You're against fluid loss, meaning that when you have an open wound, your blood will start to lose, so you lose both plasma and the blood cells. So you need a platelet cell to stop the wound from bleeding, so that you will stop the fluid loss. This is something that you need to memorize the number. In our blood, 55% they are mostly plasma. 45% they are the so-called the cells. Plasma, they have inorganic or organic substances. Inorganic substances like the ion, like sodium ion, chloride ion, or then the organic substances like the protein, or protein, amino acid, or glucose. Those are the organic substances. And then 45% they are the so-called formed element, meaning the red blood cells, aka erythrocytes. Cyte means cell, erythro means red. White blood cell, leukocyte. Cyte means cell, leuko means white. Platelets, or called thrombocyte. So here is what I just told you. In the plasma, we have inorganic ion, like sodium chloride gas. And then you have the organic component, like the protein. And you also have metabolic waste, like the urea, ammonia. And then you have other substances, like hormones and enzymes that can help you regulate your body function. Red blood cell, also known as erythrocyte. It is a biconcave disc shape of the cell. They don't have nucleus. That's why the red blood cell have a very short lifespan. Take a guess, how long can a red blood cell live? Usually, red blood cell can live 120 days in our body. 120 days. This is the lifespan of a red blood cell because they don't have a nucleus. But how come they don't have nucleus? Because they want to maximize the capacity of carrying oxygen or carbon dioxide inside the red blood cell. So they have hemoglobin instead. So they have a lot of hemoglobin in the red blood cell to carry a lot of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So each hemoglobin has 4 units, and then each unit contains a globin and a heme group. And we call it heme group because it contains an iron ion that can carry oxygen.